I thought the worst part of business trips was the loneliness, until I saw my wife on the news, in a burning building, with another man. Hey there. Thanks for dropping by. I never thought I'd end up sharing something like this, but I guess it's time to lay it all out. If you've ever had a job that keeps you on the road, then you probably know that weird, tired feeling of walking into yet another cookie-cutter hotel room in a town you'd never choose to visit. It's not glamorous no matter what people think. Maybe it's just how I'm wired. I've always leaned a little toward the skeptical side. Or maybe it's just that I've learned not to put too much blind faith in people or places over the years. First thing I do once I step inside one of these rooms is take a minute to get familiar with the setup. I drop my travel bag and briefcase near the desk, then scan the space like it might be hiding something. And yeah, I always check the minibar seals, assuming there even is one. No way am I shelling out ridiculous hotel prices for a thimble-sized bottle of whiskey, no matter who's footing the bill. I mean, sure, I've got an expense account, but I'm not about to pay for something I didn't touch. I've heard stories about folks getting hit with charges for stuff they never used. After that, I do a quick sweep to make sure the room's actually clean. A fancy lobby and a cheerful front desk clerk don't mean the folks doing the real work are keeping things up to par. I check the sheets, the towels, make sure nothing smells off. And yeah, I peek under the bed too. That's a habit I picked up after reading about some guy in New York who found something wild down there. I've never found anything horrifying, nothing like that, but I have come across a couple surprises. I won't go into detail about what I pulled out from under one bed. Someone out there might still want it back. Let's just say I wiped it clean, reset the whole thing, and my daughter loves the iPod now. Though I did have to grab a new set of earbuds for it. Once the room passes my little checklist, I turn on the tap in the bathroom, hot and cold, and make sure the phone's working. That one's important. Trust me, if the TV doesn't work and you don't have a phone to call the front desk, you're in for a real headache trying to fix it. Not that I spend much time watching television anyway, but sometimes it helps drown out the noise coming through the paper-thin walls. Some of these cheaper places? You can hear everything going on next door, arguments, laughter, even the worst kind of sounds. I'm not trying to eavesdrop, but it's hard not to when the walls are whisper-thin. Anyway, this room was actually in pretty decent shape. Most of the ones I stay in are, but I guess I've just got that doomsday brain. Always double-checking everything, expecting something to be off. Comes with the territory, I guess. Honestly though, what really got to me that night was knowing I had to spend yet another evening away from my wife, Rachel. Yeah, I know it's not the most unique name in the world, but it suits her. She's got this way about her, soft-spoken, thoughtful, the kind of woman you feel lucky to come home to. Her folks had a pretty unique story actually. Her mom was French and her dad was a pilot shot down during the war. Her mom's family hid him from the enemy, nursed him back to health, and helped him make it across the border into Spain. After the war ended, he came back, married the woman who saved his life, and brought her home to start a new one in the States. Rachel's name doesn't lend itself to nicknames too well, so I just started calling her Han, or Babe, early on, and it stuck. Been that way ever since. I'd left the TV playing while I hopped into the shower, just letting the background noise fill the silence. When I came out, wrapped in one of those stiff hotel towels, the local news was on, 6:30 sharp. I grabbed the remote and flipped over to a national station, figured I might as well catch up on the bigger headlines. But, as usual, it was the same old circus. Politicians pointing fingers about some global situation, talking tough in suits while soldiers get caught in the middle. They always frame it as peacekeeping, but let's be real, we all know what that means. Our folks out there putting their lives on the line while the folks in charge back home keep fumbling everything else. I've always felt like they keep stirring up trouble overseas just to keep us distracted from the chaos they're causing right here in our own backyard. I didn't have the patience for that kind of noise, not tonight. So I lowered the volume and picked up my phone to give Rachel a call. I never used the hotel phones, ridiculously overpriced, and besides, my cell's got speed dial. No brainer. First I rang the house. No answer. Not too strange, really. Rachel isn't one to sit still long. Then I tried her cell. It rang a few times before she finally picked up. She told me she was hanging out with Jenny and Joe, our close friends from down the block, and might crash there for the night. Made sense. No point heading back to an empty house when I wasn't around, and she'd stayed with them before when work pulled me away. We chatted for a bit, just the usual stuff. I miss you, love you, can't wait to see you tomorrow night. That kind of thing. Comforting, in a way, even if it felt a little automatic. After we hung up, I figured I might as well head down to the hotel restaurant and grab something for dinner. The menu didn't exactly impress me. I scanned it twice before giving in and ordering my usual, steak medium. Unfortunately, it ended up going back to the kitchen once because apparently medium meant still mooing to the cook. The waiter didn't seem too thrilled about it either. Whole place had that vibe, just barely holding it together. The bar area was filling up with the usual cast of characters. A group of 4 guys at one table looked like the kind of crowd you don't bump into without saying sorry first. Tough types. Then there was a young couple tucked away in a corner. They looked like they were fresh off a honeymoon, practically glowing. I just hoped they weren't staying in the room next to mine. Thin walls and all. 2 other couples grabbed my attention next. The age gaps were noticeable. Like you'd raise an eyebrow if you saw them walking down the street. Part of me wondered if the women were escorts, but hey, not my place to judge. People do what they do for all kinds of reasons. Then she walked in. You ever see someone enter a room and it's like every conversation drops an octave? That's what happened when she stepped through the door. She wasn't some young 20-something trying too hard. No, this woman had presence. Graceful. Confident. The kind of beauty that doesn't need to shout to get noticed. Of course, it wasn't long before some guy, the wolf type, you know the one, made a move. A little too quick on the draw if you ask me. Whatever she said to him, though, must have hit hard because he backed off fast. I kinda admired that, honestly. Now, I'll try to describe her the best I can, but words never do these things justice. She wasn't some glossy magazine model, and that's exactly what made her stand out. There was a natural elegance to her, like she didn't need to try, and that only made her more magnetic. The way she carried herself, it wasn't for anyone's benefit. She just was. To my surprise, scratch that, my quiet disappointment, she chose the table right next to mine. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy admiring a beautiful woman as much as the next guy, but when someone like that sits down so close, it's hard not to feel awkward. Especially when you're alone, tired, and already feeling a little too far from home. I'll admit it, part of me wanted to strike up a conversation, and another part just wanted to finish my meal and get back to pretending the hotel bed was comfortable. It was tough not to let my eyes wander. She had this quiet elegance, the kind of beauty that doesn't try to be noticed, but ends up turning heads anyway. Still, I tried not to stare. I didn't want to come off as just another guy looking for a story to take home. But even before I could settle fully into my dinner, someone else came along, bold as anything, and asked her to dance. She smiled politely and turned him down with more grace than I probably could have mustered. He hung around a beat too long, awkwardly hoping she might change her mind. Then he shuffled off, only to be replaced by another one. This second guy didn't take rejection as well. You could see he'd had a few too many, and he wasn't picking up on the fact that she wasn't interested. Eventually, I couldn't just sit there and pretend I wasn't watching. I leaned forward in my seat and spoke up, loud enough for him to hear but calm enough not to escalate things. Sir, I said, I don't think the lady's enjoying your company, or your persistence. Maybe it's time to head back to your table before you make her evening worse than you already have. He turned toward me, his expression slow to register. The alcohol had fogged him up a bit and I could see the gears struggling to turn. Still, even in his hazy state, he took a few seconds to weigh things up. What might happen if he decided to push back? What's it to you? He finally asked, slurring slightly. She's a friend of mine, I said, meeting his eyes with a steady calm. He squinted at me like he was trying to remember where he'd seen me before, then gave a little shrug like he didn't really care one way or the other. Well, now you do, he muttered before wobbling away in search of easier prey. I turned to her and gave an apologetic half-smile. I figured it was time someone laid their cards on the table, I said. Didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Her lips curved into a gentle smile. A little light conversation is all I ever look for when I'm away from home, she said. She must be some woman, I offered, nodding toward the direction the guy had stumbled off to. She is, she replied, settling back into the sofa a little and motioning for me to join her. Half French, half Scottish. The French gave her beauty and fire. The Scottish gave her wit, and an uncanny ability to stretch a dollar further than anyone I know. I chuckled. Sounds like she could run a small country. I'll have a gin and tonic if I may, she added, smoothly changing the subject. I flagged down the waiter and placed the order while we chatted. We started swapping stories, nothing too personal at first. Just bits about work, travel, small annoyances. She told me her name was Annie. She was in town for a meeting with some financial consultant, and apparently, it wasn't going great. He keeps flipping through paperwork like he's doing me a favor just by looking at it, she said, shaking her head. Probably just a way to justify another £70 fee for telling me I've been irresponsible. I've met the type, I said. All puffed up with their own importance. Exactly, she said. Do you run a big overdraft? Nope, I replied. I work in security consulting. They love playing the "I'm the clever one" game, but I usually end up pointing out all the flaws in their systems. Cuts them down to size. She raised a brow, impressed. So, if you're here, who's watching the fort? My kids, I said. Michelle, she's 17. Handles a lot of things now. She's good like her mom that way. Annie looked thoughtful. Does your wife miss having the kids around the house? I paused for a second. I think she does, yeah. But lately it's just the two of us again. Honestly, she's been more lively. Like she's rediscovered herself a little. She's big into volunteering now. Always on some charity committee with her best friend, Jenny. And when she's not organizing events, she's dragging me to one. Annie laughed. Sounds like she keeps you busy. For sure, I said, smiling. We talked like that for the next couple of hours, just drifting from one topic to the next over our meal. I couldn't tell you exactly what we covered, but it felt nice not to be eating alone for a change. Eventually the clock crept up on us. It was getting close to 8:30 when we wrapped things up. Annie stood, offered me a soft goodbye, and said she had to get back to her room to prepare for her meeting. She left quickly, a small wave over her shoulder. I didn't rush. I stayed a little longer, sipping the rest of my drink. Part of me didn't feel like heading back upstairs just yet, not because I was avoiding anything but because, for the first time in a while, I didn't feel entirely alone. I didn't plan on checking out until at least 10 a.m., no sense in rushing. My schedule was light, and this trip was more of a formality than anything else. Just a surface-level walkthrough of a location that had already been combed over a few weeks back by one of the other guys on our team. It wasn't my territory, just filling in, making sure everything looked the same on paper as it did in person. Nothing unexpected. At least that's what I thought. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, flipping through channels out of habit more than interest. The local news was still on, wrapping up another segment about a fire that happened the night before. My attention drifted, until the screen changed. 1 second it was just a shot of a porter standing in front of a burned-out building. Then suddenly, boom, it cut to live footage from the night the fire happened. Flames chewing through the windows and roof, sparks lighting up the sky like it was the 4th of July. For a second I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I sat up straight. What was a national news crew doing filming in a sleepy town like this? I didn't have long to wonder though, because what they showed next changed everything. The reporter was droning on about how many fire crews responded, but I barely heard her. The footage had shifted again, showing close-ups of the building as it burned. Then, mixed into the chaos, was something I never expected to see, something that made my chest tighten. The camera panned to a crowd of people being ushered back by firefighters. In the middle of that group, plain as day, was Rachel. And right beside her, arm around her shoulders like they belonged together, was Sheldon Grant. Yeah, that's Sheldon. I didn't move. Just sat there watching my wife standing next to another man in the middle of the night, in a hotel I wasn't even supposed to know about. The news ended soon after, but my head was still spinning. I didn't want to believe what I saw, so I did what I always do when I need answers. I made a call. I dialed Jenny, Rachel's best friend, and waited. Her voice came through the phone, shaky. "Hello," she said, trying to sound normal but clearly off. "Jenny, you're not heading into work this morning?" There was a pause. I heard the TV in her background, same news broadcast. Andy. At least I knew she'd seen what I had. Then she covered the receiver with her hand. I could hear the muffled shuffle, like she was trying to decide whether to lie. When she came back on, her tone had shifted. "No, I'm not feeling well today." "What's going on, Ian? Can you transfer me to Derek? I need a word." He just walked in. "Want me to get him?" "Tell him I'm about to make him some money," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "That should get him on the line." After a short hold, Derek picked up. "What time do you call this?" he grumbled. "I've barely walked through the door." "Time to earn your paycheck," I said. "Listen up. I need everything you've got on Rachel and Sheldon." There was a pause. "You sure you want to go there?" Derek asked. "I'm not finished," I said. "This woman, she's not just anybody. She's got that storybook look, says she's a widow, but I'm starting to wonder." Derek was quiet for a beat. "You think they're playing dirty?" "I'm not taking chances," I told him. "Last night I did what I was supposed to. I stayed alone. Didn't step out of line." Meanwhile, Rachel and Sheldon were getting cozy at the railway hotel. "That's not just betrayal, that's deliberate." "Okay," he said slowly. "What do you want me to do?" "I've sent you 2 files, I told him. "One's labeled broadcast. That's the footage that aired, anyone could have seen it. Show it to whoever you want. But the second file, that one's private. It's everything the news crew recorded off camera. You need to be careful who gets a look at that. I leaned back against the headboard, exhausted but burning with adrenaline. There are clips, I added, candid ones. Just them acting like no one's watching. Derek's voice dropped. You sure you want this? I need to see it all, I said. Every angle. Because that morning in a cheap hotel room hundreds of miles from home, my whole life cracked open. And what had started as a routine business trip was now the beginning of something much, much bigger. I'll level with you. What really pushed me to make that call wasn't the official footage. It was the off-the-record stuff. The raw clips. Seeing Rachel and Sheldon together like that, unguarded, familiar, it hit me hard. Harder than I expected. I knew I couldn't just sit on it, so I reached out to Derek. At first, he was skeptical. I couldn't blame him. From the outside, it probably looked like I was grasping at shadows. But once I explained that there was a real chance someone was trying to line me up, to frame me, he got serious. I grabbed my gear from the trunk of my car and got to work. Transferred the previous 24 hours of footage onto a set of DVDs. It was second nature at that point. The kind of thing that comes with years of working security. Always keep a clean copy, always make sure your backups can stand up in court or worse. Thankfully, I knew the hotel had a regular archiving system. Their system automatically logged the footage weekly, which meant I could later confirm that what I had hadn't been touched. That gave me peace of mind. In this line of work, trust is a luxury. Evidence is everything. Funny enough, while I was wrapping up the review, I started thinking about it from another angle. If I was this good at catching details, if it was literally my job, how did I not see what was happening right in front of me? How did I not catch on that Rachel and Sheldon had crossed a line? I was still chewing on that thought when Annie showed up again out of nowhere and slid into the seat across from me. Hey, stranger, she said with that familiar half smile. We keep bumping into each other, huh? You heading home? Hey, I replied, genuinely surprised. What brings you back here? Trying to tempt fate with another round of food poisoning? She laughed, glancing over her shoulder at the buffet setup. You're not wrong. Most of this looks like it's been sitting under a heat lamp since yesterday. But I'm not eating here by choice. My bus takes a mandatory half-hour break here. There was something comforting about seeing her again. It took the edge off the morning I just had. We talked a little while longer, mostly small talk, and I could hear snippets of her conversation with her kids when she took a quick call. They were checking in, protective in that way grown children are with a mother who's recently widowed. Annie assured them she was fine, and that her overdraft had been approved for another 6 months. Something about the way she said it, confident but practical, reminded me of Rachel. At least the Rachel I used to know. We shared a quiet cup of coffee, and when her break was up, she gave me a quick smile and headed out. I watched her go, then got up and started the long drive home. When I pulled into the driveway, I wasn't surprised to see Rachel's car already parked in its usual spot. The house lights were on. Everything looked just like it always did. That was the strange part, how normal everything seemed, even though nothing about this situation was normal anymore. I sat in the car for a minute, engine off, hands on the wheel, trying to figure out how to approach what was waiting inside. Part of me wanted to confront her. Part of me wanted to sit quietly and see if she'd bring it up first. But then a different idea hit me. A call came through just as I was about to get out. It was Larry, mutual friend and fellow club member. Hey, he said, not bothering with small talk. You heard about Sheldon? Not yet, I replied, playing it cool. He's on his way out. Golf committee's voting next week. They're bringing him up on charges for that outburst he had during the tournament. Arguing with a guest player, called it ungentlemanly conduct. I let out a low whistle. About time. Larry chuckled. Yeah, but honestly, what's more ungentlemanly than what he did to you? Friendships don't mean much to guys like that. We wrapped up the call and I couldn't help but smile as I slipped my phone back into my jacket pocket. Getting tossed from the club was just the beginning for Sheldon. There were going to be consequences. Real ones. He didn't just mess around with the wrong guy's wife. He tried to blow up someone's life. But I'm not the type to scream and shout. I take my time. I do things right. And this was just the start. I couldn't help but wonder what Sheldon's wife would say when all this came to light. What would she feel when she saw him for who he really was? I'd be lying if I said the betrayal didn't cut deep. It did. More than I cared to admit. But what stung worse wasn't even Sheldon. It was Rachel. I still love you, she said, her voice trembling. No, I told her, keeping my eyes steady. You did love me. Past tense. Because I can't keep loving someone who made a fool out of me. Her lip quivered and she looked away. How long, Rachel? I asked. How long has this been going on? She opened her mouth, but her voice barely carried. We haven't. I mean, it wasn't like that. Don't lie to me, I snapped, sharper than I meant to, but I was done playing the fool. Are you really going to stand there and claim that you and Sheldon were just sitting around in that hotel room playing cards? You want me to believe that? After what I saw. After what everyone saw. She started crying again. I didn't reach for her. I couldn't. Instead, I busied myself gathering the things I needed, trying to hold on to whatever shred of composure I had left. You've probably done the same, she said suddenly, her voice rising a notch. All those times you were out of town, you've had flings too. You can't deny it. I froze. Slowly turned to face her. What are you talking about? I mean, come on, she said softer now. You never told me everything. I never got angry with you. I knew there were moments. No, I said low but firm. Don't rewrite history, Rachel. I've done nothing I'm ashamed of. Not once. I never disrespected you. Not like this. But Sheldon said. For heaven's sake, Rachel, I cut in. Do you seriously believe a word that man says? He's been spinning stories for years, telling you whatever he thought would get him what he wanted. And you let him. You believed him. I saw it hit her all at once. Her defenses slipping. Her face crumpling as if she were realizing everything in slow motion. I thought I knew you, I said, quieter now. She didn't respond. Let me show you something, I said, picking up the remote. You think I don't know what temptation looks like? You think I haven't been in that position before? She looked confused, then her eyes flicked to the television as I started the playback. Here's what one of my nights out looks like, I said. Watch. The screen showed the footage I'd taken. A woman, Annie, sitting at the bar, clearly uncomfortable as a drunk guy leaned too close, saying something she clearly didn't appreciate. Then came the part that gutted me most, me stepping in. Calm, respectful. Helping. Nothing more. Rachel's face went pale. She reminded me of you, you know, I said quietly. Not now. But the version of you I married. The woman who used to look at me with warmth, not suspicion. And he's been through a lot. Her husband died 8 months ago. She's still picking up the pieces. Is she? Rachel started. She's lonely, I said. She's kind. And she's vulnerable. And she's exactly the kind of person someone like Sheldon would try to manipulate. I paused, let the silence hang for a second before finishing. But I'm not Sheldon. Rachel sat in silence, her eyes glossy. I took a deep breath, felt the words coming even though they hurt. Rachel, I want you to pack your things. And I want you to leave this house. Her voice cracked as she whispered, You don't mean that. I do, I said, trying to steady the lump in my throat. I've never been more certain of anything. But, where would I go? I shook my head slowly. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. I didn't mean to sound cold. But in that moment I had to be. Before she could say more, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced down and felt a new wave of dread wash over me. It was from Marinette's school. Our daughter hadn't been in her dorm at the 10:30 check-in. All students were supposed to be back by 10, no exceptions. But she was missing. My stomach sank. I tried to tell myself not to panic. She's probably out with friends, I said, more to ease my own nerves than anything else. Maybe lost track of time. You know how teenagers are. But the administrator, Mr. Thornton, cut me off. Actually, Mr. Cumberland, he said, his voice serious, we have her on video. Around 8 p.m., she was seen getting into a car with a young man. Fortunately, your company's surveillance system caught the footage. It's quite a good system, I'll say that. Helped us keep things calm and avoid jumping to conclusions. That made my heart skip a beat, but at least it gave me a lead. Not many cars like my son's around, I said slowly, connecting the dots. What time did they leave? The timestamp on the video shows 7:55, he replied. Then they'll be here soon, I said, glancing at the clock. If Jack's driving, and knowing how careful he is behind the wheel, they're probably just down the road. I appreciate your quick response, Mr. Cumberland, Thornton said. If you're sure everything's under control, I'll let the police know they can stand down. Please do. I'll call you as soon as she's back. Roughly 20 minutes later, I heard the familiar sound of Jack's car engine growling its way up the driveway. He always did like those louder exhausts. I stepped outside just as they parked, and Marinette stepped out of the passenger seat, looking sheepish, nervous, and far too young for the kind of stress she was walking into. I didn't raise my voice. Not yet. Inside we sat down to talk. Rachel's name came up. Of course it did. My daughter looked confused, trying to understand what all this meant for her, for the house, for everything she'd ever known. If neither of you wanted the house, I explained gently, it would go to my sister or one of her kids. But whatever happens after the divorce, your mother has no legal claim to this place. She can go live wherever she wants. With her boyfriend if that's what she chooses. But Uncle Sheldon is married, Marinette blurted out, the word uncle, like a slap to the face. I froze for a second. Then, calmly but firmly, I said, don't call him that. Not in this house, Jack. Not ever again. The room fell silent. If I finalize the divorce from your mother, and Sheldon's wife leaves him, and the two of them end up playing house together and tying the knot, then fine. You can call him whatever you like. But not now. Not while the wreckage is still fresh. Marinette stared down at her hands, lips pressed into a tight line. You can call your mother if you want answers, I added. But don't be surprised if someone else picks up. Reluctantly, she pulled out her phone and turned it back on. I had it off because the school kept calling, she admitted, sounding guilty. The phone rang. And when Rachel answered, I watched Marinette's entire demeanor change. Mom, she said. Then, more forcefully, how could you do this to us? Her voice was sharp, cutting and full of disbelief. I didn't move. I let her say what she needed to say. There was a long pause as she listened to whatever came through the receiver. Then her face fell. You could see the betrayal sinking in. It wasn't just disappointment, it was heartbreak. You always told us family comes first, she said quietly, tears starting to form. That we stick together. That's what being a mother means. Isn't it? She didn't wait for the reply. I'd better go, she said. I don't even know how much credit I have left on this phone. And honestly, I don't trust myself not to say something I'll regret. She ended the call and dropped the phone in her lap like it burned her. I wanted to say something. But what do you say to your daughter when the one person who should have protected her heart the most is the one who broke it? I'll regret it later, Marinette said softly, still staring at the screen. If I don't say it now, I'll carry it with me. She paused, jaw tightening. You'll have to call Jack and ask him, won't you, Mom? Goodbye. She ended the call, her thumb pressing the screen like she was sealing something shut. I watched her, waiting a moment before speaking. You were a little hard on her, I said quietly. Marinette turned to me, eyes fierce. No, Dad. Nowhere near as harsh as I could have been. If you hadn't found out everything when you did, Jack and we've been stuck in this awful in-between place. Not knowing how to feel. Not knowing what was real. There was pain in her voice, but also a quiet strength. I didn't interrupt her. That's not something you bounce back from, she added, folding her arms. She looked so much like Rachel in that moment, and yet nothing like her at all. Later that evening, while the house finally settled into an uneasy silence, I found myself reflecting on things I hadn't thought about in years. The way my side of the family had always been sharp when it came to money. My father used to say, don't flaunt what you don't want taxed. There were old foreign investments tucked away in places that didn't make it into the official books. Offshore accounts paid in by quiet profits that accumulated slowly over time. To be honest, I couldn't even tell you how much was out there. I never tracked it too closely. Just knew it was there if I ever needed to fall back. And now it looked like that rainy day might have finally come. Still, I figured the less the government knew, the better. That way they couldn't throw it into roads that didn't get fixed or buildings that sat half-finished. But just as the divorce neared its final steps, something unexpected happened. Sheldon had an accident. A bad one. To this day, I don't know all the details. He spun out on a back road at night, clipped a tree, fractured his leg and something in his back. Odd timing to say the least. Jack was the one who insisted I go to the hospital with him. Said I should see for myself. So I did. It wasn't pretty. Sheldon looked smaller somehow. Deflated. For the first time, I saw him as a man who had lost, not just his body but his control. To her credit, Rachel didn't get much out of the divorce apart from her name. She moved into a cramped apartment downtown. I never went there myself, but the kids told me it was run down. She tried reaching out a few times after that. Left voicemails. Sent a letter once. I think she wanted to fix what was broken, at least patch enough of it to be allowed back into our lives. Maybe if she'd tried sooner, it would have made a difference. Maybe. But then came the night she made her biggest mistake. She went out. Just some drinks with coworkers, she told the kids later. Said she finally felt strong enough to show her face around town again. Problem was she drank too much. Got sloppy. Ended up somewhere she shouldn't have been with people she didn't know well. Word traveled. In a town like ours, it always does. And whatever faint chance she might have had at a second shot, Well, that sealed it shut. Jack reminded me of it later when we were out for dinner. My attention had drifted when I spotted our waitress. Something about her struck me, familiar but just out of reach. And then it clicked. When she came back to take our order, I looked up and smiled. "Well now, Michelle," I said casually. "How's your mother doing these days?" Her name stopped the conversation cold. Jack and Marinette both stared at me stunned. They knew Michelle, but they didn't know I did. They had no idea how I could possibly recognize the girl serving drinks in a place I'd never been before. Michelle blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" I didn't answer. Just gave her a look. Calm, gentle. It wasn't about scaring her. It was about making a point. Later, as we left, Jack caught up to me outside. "How do you know her?" I just shook my head. "Sometimes people come back into your life in the strangest ways," I said. "But it's what you do with the moment that matters." He nodded slowly, absorbing more than just the words. He was getting older now, starting to talk about reopening the shop once his training was done. Said he wanted to build something again. Something real. And standing there in the dark outside that little pub, I realized I wanted that for him too. A clean start. A future he could trust. I turned to Jack with a half smile. "Well," I said, "what would you think about working in a quiet country garage?" He raised an eyebrow, already sensing where this was going. "Perks of the job?" I continued. "You'd get to see Michelle here just about every day. And I've got a feeling the place might come with a very motivated apprentice." Michelle flushed a little, but she didn't look away. Instead, she gave Jack a look I hadn't seen her give anyone before, equal parts curiosity and quiet approval. "What do you think, Michelle?" I asked. "Jack's fully qualified. Just hasn't found the right garage yet. Maybe this could be it." She shrugged, but there was a spark in her eye. "I'm not sure. You'd have to ask my mom." "We'll do that," I said. I didn't push it further. These things take time. Still, it was good to see Jack thinking, really thinking about settling into something solid. Something his own. After everything we'd been through, that kind of stability mattered more than ever. I'd watched him grow up under the weight of his mother's choices. Watched him carry more than a kid should. I'd seen him with his arm around girls I knew were no good for him, loud, careless types who made trouble and dragged it around like a handbag. And yet, in all those moments he still looked for something steady. Now maybe he'd finally found it. Later, sitting on the porch after dark, he turned to me and asked, "Okay, where do we go from here?" I thought about giving him the long version. All the detours. All the heartbreak. But instead I just smiled. "No need for the whole story," I said. "Annie and I got married 4 months after everything happened. We're living in the bungalow now, right next to the garage." He nodded. He already knew most of it, but I think hearing me say it out loud made it feel more real. "For now you've got the mobile home," I added, "but once the paperwork goes through, we'll break ground on that second bungalow. Won't be long before you've got your own place. Garage is doing well. More work coming in than we expected. A couple of foreign imports even, which surprised the hell out of me." Jack smiled. The first genuine one I'd seen from him in a while. But of course nothing stays quiet forever. Just when life started to settle, the police showed up at the door again. It was about Sheldon. Apparently he'd been hit by a car in a parking lot, pretty badly too. They thought he'd never walk again. Some said he was hobbling around now on crutches, but still, the whole thing was suspicious. The last time cops came knocking was after Sheldon's incident at the club, when he lost his temper and got physical with a visiting player. This time? This was something else. And here's the kicker. They said he's been living with Jenny. Yeah, that Jenny. Apparently Joseph, the one we used to count on as her rock, is on the run. Something to do with fraud, maybe worse. He vanished before the authorities could catch up with him. Rumor has it he skipped town and hasn't been heard from since. Funny how people show you who they really are when they think no one's looking. Sad too. Still, I keep my head down now. Garage work. My wife. My kids. Jack figuring out his place in the world. That's what matters. We all went through the fire. Now we're just trying to rebuild, one quiet day at a time.